Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola. You had a choice today. You had a choice of where you wanted to be. And we are pleased that you chose to be here today with us. I'm Nancy Hagman, and I'm the service leader for today. And we have a few announcements. We want to thank people for bringing food from Anna's Food Bank, and we collect it each month, and one of our members, Patty Underwood, is our faithful deliverer of the goods. And the other announcement, it's not always easy, sometimes it's heavy. Our other announcements is that the Sunday Sweet Bakers are back in town. So get out your money and come on down. We have got the goodies for you. Cranberry, strawberry, lemon, chocolate, rum, and tiramisu. Have a slice here and buy some to go. Our UU budget can sure use the dough. This is our ever-resident poet, Margaret Mclaren. We do not print an order of service anymore, but we do hand out this so that new people can see kind of what we're about and consistently know that this is what we're about, because these folders are made sort of in a permanent basis. And so if you want to take one home, you may. If not, we do recycle them. So feel free to leave them in the basket in the back. Inside, if you selected one, is a form for you to fill out for our joys and concerns. And you may leave those put those in the offering basket when we collect the offering. Today's Mother's Day. Most people know that. And I often think about my mother or other mothers or being a mother. And I often think about how many people are mothers to other people, no matter what your gender is, in how you nurture someone else. But I also think it's about us personally. And this is a day of celebrating a lot of times our own birth, because we were birthed through a mother. So blessed be to mothers and caregivers and lovers and to ourselves. And now we'll have the lighting of our chalice. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundation of freedom, reason, and tolerance. A faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice. A faith that visions a world flourishing in equality for all her people. A faith that demands the living out of goodness. A faith that requires thoughtfulness. A faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all of this within us. And if you will stand we will say together our covenant. It will be on the screen. Yeah, let our bones stretch and let our muscles stretch as we get out of those chairs. Love is the service of this church, and service its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you, and you may be seated.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Stubbs, and I'm the Children's Religious Education Coordinator here at UUCP. And today I have an activity more than a story for our Time for All Ages. Today's service, the message today is about fair and equal, and about if they're the same or not. So we'd like to need some volunteers to help me with that. Help me figure out about fair and equal. So what does it mean when something is unfair? Anyone? What is unfair?
Unjust.
Unjust? Okay. Anybody else? Hugh?
Being treated less than you think someone else would be treated.
Yes, that's one. Anybody else?
Unbalanced.
Unbalanced? Okay. So, so fair and equal aren't quite the same, are they? Are they? Okay, so my two volunteers I need at this time. Who would like to volunteer to come up? You raise your hand. Come on, Wash. Anybody else? Okay, Laura. Okay. So I warned some of my folks there might be a treat involved. So before we get our treats, we need to sanitize our hands. Gloves might have been a little cumbersome. I don't think she'll mind if I put that in there. Okay, so let's get our sanitizer. Okay. Let them air out a little bit. Did I get too? I got too much.
No,
Did I
it's
get too
fine.
much? Y'all are good. Okay.
We're good,
So
right?
I have a plate for each of you. Here's a plate for you. Plate for you. Okay. And then what I have in here is 10 cookies. So how would I fairly divide 10 cookies? Or equally, fair or equal?
Well, I don't probably eat as much as he does, so fair might be for him to get more, but equal would be for us to get the same. Right?
Yeah. That would.
You can read the whole thing.
Yeah. You read this, right? Okay. You cheated. You got the cheat sheet from Marylee. Okay. So let's try with equal. We'll start with equal. So these are like almond lemon cookies. So any nut allergies over here? Or should I ask before I start to pass them out? Okay. And they have a little lemon in them too. These were donated by Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, and
See, all of you, if you'd known you were going to get cookies, wouldn't you have volunteered?
I can't read the name of it, Michael. Do you remember what they're called? Where are they from? You knew when you gave them to me, and I didn't write it down. I'm sorry. It looks like some kind of Slavic handwriting. You got it at a store, the specialty store.
But I have 5 in the store.
Not bad. We got to keep it fair, right? Well, you guys stick up for yourself, son. Okay, so we decided that for it to be fair and equal, y'all would both get 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then you jumped ahead to that maybe equal isn't fair, because maybe you're not quite as hungry as Wash. So what would that look like?
That might look like this.
Okay, so you have 3, and now you have 7 cookies. So, people in the audience, is that fair that one gets 7 and one gets 3?
Then choosing to be fair is fair.
It's fair is fair, choosing to be fair. Okay, so I know, I gotta look at my cheat sheet. Okay. So the self-reported scale of what they've decided is fair. So they consider, though it's not equal, it's fair. Right? Okay. I'm sorry. So, she wants 3. How many would be fair for you to have?
I would say 3.
Well, that's what would be equal. But aren't you hungrier? You're a growing boy. Don't you need more energy?
Yes.
Or also maybe you need a few more cookies?
I don't need more than 7.
You don't need 7 cookies? Okay. All right. So, according to Wash, it's not quite equal because he's got too many.
That's not fair.
Well,
Well, it's not.
It is fair because y'all decided this was fair.
Well, I thought it was fair, but he's thinking it's too much, right?
Yeah, but you already said you only wanted 3.
That's true.
Okay. So, and how many do you want?
3.
I'll put the other 4 back on this puzzle. Oh, look. Now what are the cookies?
Equal.
Equal.
They're equal. Fantastic. Oh, you may take your cookies to your seats. I need 2 more volunteers. Thank you very much. Thank you. I know, right? Okay.
I'm all about some cookies.
Oh yeah, these are good ones too. I had to sample them before I brought them out. Okay.
Nobody else jumped up.
Okay.
All right.
You have 5 cookies?
Yeah.
Now, so we've already determined if everybody has 5 cookies, that's equal, right? Okay.
Right?
So then let's gauge how hungry you are. So on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the most hungry and 1 being the least hungry, which would you say you are? 1, so you're not really hungry. You had a pretty big breakfast this morning. Well, did you have breakfast? Yeah. What'd you have?
A nutrient bar and some applesauce.
That sounds pretty good. That sounds like a good filling, stick to your bones breakfast. What'd you have for breakfast?
Bagel, cream cheese, cranberries, and sunflower seeds.
Oh, that's a good breakfast too. So I understand why you're one. On that scale, what is your hunger level?
3. That wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough.
And what happened has a sweet tooth.
He has a sweet tooth. Okay, all right. I see where he's going now. Okay, sweet tooth. So you're not very hungry, and he's starving. So are equal amounts fair at this instance?
You could save it for later.
Well, no, you're gonna eat them now. No saving for
Oh,
later.
there's no saving for later.
No saving for later.
Okay.
You know what the point is?
Well, do you want more cookies? Do you want 5? Is that too many for right now? I could always eat, so maybe.
Taking candy from a baby. I'm sorry.
I was trying to
I know.
help.
Okay, so 5. How many cookies do you think you need since your hunger level is 1? You just need 1 cookie? Okay. So let's put, you got the smaller plate.
That's all right. We can stack them.
Okay, so put 4 cookies on this plate.
I should probably just eat that one.
Maybe. Okay, so now how many cookies do you have?
I had 9.
9, and your hunger level is like a 5?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's still a lot of cookies.
That's a lot of cookies. You think that, what is your hunger level on the number of cookies?
3.
Maybe 3?
So we should give you some cookies.
Oh, no, we're gonna put them on another plate. Okay. So, put cookies on here until you have 3 cookies.
I will do that. There we go.
Okay. Now, do they have equal amounts of cookies?
No.
Do they have a fair amount of cookies?
Yes.
Yes. That's what it's about, people. But you may take your cookies to your seat. Okay. Let me find the wrap-up words. I'm horrible with wrapping things up. So it turns out that equal is not the same thing as fair. Equality is a good thing when we talk about people being equal or having equal rights. We mean that all people have the same giant amount of inherent worth and dignity. As we saw, though, fairness is different. Fair doesn't mean that we all get the same thing that everyone else has. Fair means that we go beyond and we look at equal and we ask a lot of questions. We're beginning to see that fairness is complicated. As Unitarian Universalists, we talk a lot about justice. When we use the word justice, often we're talking about fairness. When we see something that's unfair, we believe in saying so. And just like that, we had to talk about ways to divide up the cookies. Sometimes we need to talk. Sometimes we talk a lot, especially over coffee, and about how to make things fair. And this can be complicated, but it's a wonderful thing about Unitarian Universalism. We believe in equality and in fairness when there's differences. I think that's a typo. Okay. So that concludes Time for All Ages today. Thank you for your participation, my volunteers. Excuse me.
This may have reminded you of a story of your own childhood or in your current life, and it reminded me of my brother's brilliant idea of what was fair. And he decided, he was older than I was, and I thought, of course, that he was always out to get me, but he decided that if we had a candy bar, the one who cut it had to let the other person take the first piece, which was really interesting because it was fair. And of course, it took him hours to cut the candy bar. And we're going to try something different today in letting the children go, and we're just going to do something really simple. So I'd like for you to put your hands in the air, and we're just going to go la, 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 la. Children can go to their services. La, la. I don't see any children. Maybe we'll all go with that. La, 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 la. La, 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 la. Woohoo! All right. And if you will stand, we will sing together, Widening the Circle, and Laura Keith King will lead us. Oh, and the choir. Sorry. Most importantly, we have extras. That's great.
Circles.
We are opening our circle, and I hope you had an opportunity to realize that we have two new faces in our choir. Two beautiful people that have stepped forward. They've come to visit a couple times, and they have lovely voices added to our congregation. So welcome and thank you for jumping in. We're also widening our circle with our young people. We have young people running our tech. Now that's not really a surprise because young people know how to do these things. Probably they can improve on how we do it. But we have them on Sundays often running our technology and our sound system, which is really, really powerful and very important for us, but very important to have them with us. Our offertory slide is on the screen, and our offertory is about our generosity. It's about being part of this congregation and generosity in our congregation. And the next time that you feel the urge to be generous, please consider this congregation and this community in your gift. If you have a joy or sorrow as the basket is passed, you may put it in the basket and we will share it at Joys and Concerns. Bobby who?
Bobby Van Heusen.
Oh, Bobby Van Heusen. This is by one of the musicians from our church, so enjoy. Sometimes we have extra music. This is our time of sharing together in our community, things that are on our hearts. It's our joys and our sorrows that we want to share with one another. And Laura Keith King and her husband Ed would like some thoughts and prayers for some family members that are going through some rough times. And feel that it is not really any fault of their own, but they still are addressing them. And Hugh Ed has a celebration that some of our congregation was seen at the Just Pensacola, and there were pictures in the newspaper of us. And some of the more appropriate parts of us were shown, which was the backs of our heads. It's on the bulletin board. Okay, so you can see the backs of heads, and if you're sitting at the back of the congregation, you can see lots of backs of heads. And
Can you say how many of us were there?
oh, that's a great idea. How many people actually were able to attend the Just Pensacola in physical time?
We had 51 associated with the church that attended.
51 that are associated with the church that actually attended. And there are more associated with the process and the project, but may not have been there that night. So, woohoo, for us, 2 candles. Yes. All right. And one of our members was here last week. We hadn't seen her for quite a while, and it's Dolly Berthelot. And she thoroughly enjoyed being here. After that time, though, she has gone home and not feeling really well. But she did test for COVID, and it was negative. And she just wanted people to know that she had been tested so that if anybody was of concern. And she will, I'm sure, watch our services remotely, which we do have the privilege of doing now. Thank you. And we will light one last candle. Marylee wants us to light a candle for Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Yes. And Marylee's a mother. And she celebrated, and she had a mother, and isn't it great? And we will light one candle for those things that are not shared outwardly, but we hold in our hearts. I'm really glad that you're all in such a good mood, and pleased to be here this morning. Thank you so much. And our Talk for All Ages really did touch on the theme of today's message, fair versus equal. And how many times have we said in our dialogue with other people, that's not fair. I know it's not fair. But then you get some kind of logical explanation from someone, a reasonable explanation of why it didn't go the way that you wanted it to go. And does fair mean equal? Fairness isn't about everything being equal, but more about leveling the playing field so people get what they need when they need it. I recently had a conversation with a person I respect and consider a friend. In the midst of multiple subjects that came up, this person just flat out said that all people are not equal. Generally, this person felt that we could not achieve equality because some were not as smart as others. I was really taken aback by that statement. We can argue all we'd like to about intelligence, but I'm not sure that was the meaning. I believe that the statement was more to the notion that all do not deserve to have equality due to some innate flaw in themselves. Our Declaration of Independence states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." The men who wrote these words were white men who owned land, landed gentry. These thoughts did not include Native people, slaves, women, or the poor. Since July 4th, 1776, our country has made many changes.
We have not yet achieved the high goal of allowing all people equality. Unitarian Universalists have 7 principles posted each Sunday as a reminder of what we affirm and promote. The first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and the second principle of justice, equity, and compassion in human relations appear to me to be the most relevant for today's topic. UUs become aware of issues because we are involved in our communities and work to right the wrongs. I want to explore where we fall short as a nation and what we can do to keep our eyes on the prize. The truth is that every person is not equal. Some are tall, others short, some blue-eyed, others fat, thin, big feet, small hands, on and on with physical differences. Our differences make us who we are. Our legal systems, our education, our infrastructure, housing, medical, and mental health are areas where fairness and equality has failed. We're now returning to what may be called normal after 2+ years of COVID and all its tragedy. So many households affected by illness and death. Here we are, one of the richest countries in the world, but have nearly 1 million deaths due to COVID. Could this be due to inadequate health care as far as access and distribution? Of course, there are political reasons for our failure, but our nation was just not prepared. I recall in the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was praising essential workers. How many times have we said? These people who worked on the front lines battling the crisis. We know many were healthcare workers, doctors, and nurses, but also this includes custodians, food preparation, childcare, and more. Those who did not have the luxury of going home and continuing their work isolated from others. All the headlines were about these brave, essential workers. They deserve better pay, better working conditions, better health care. Did that happen? I guess you could argue that many businesses raised pay, or they may have offered hazard pay. But what's happening now? The Great Resignation. Employers have increased wages because there are fewer workers willing to continue with low pay, low benefits, low esteem for their work. The fair versus equal collide. A fair living wage is not addressed, and those who work remotely continue to do so. Congress has done nothing about raising the minimum wage. Will the private sector slide back once the memory of the pandemic fades? We can't know the answer right now, but we can continue to work to lift up this issue and make the powers that be uncomfortable. How does this relate to fair versus equal? Last Monday night, many of us attended the Nehemiah Action event for Just Pensacola. The focus of the work done by leaders of Just Pensacola was criminal justice and affordable housing. These two very important areas highlight the unfair inequity of our society. In the area of juvenile criminal justice, young people have their entire lives upended because of a silly prank where they end up with a criminal record that holds them back in future opportunities. This was the focus of last year's work, and there has been progress, but it continues to be an issue. It astounds me that the legal system is so harsh towards minors. When our daughter was in high school, more than 30 years ago, she was caught drinking alcohol at a local park near our home. There were several others with her, Anyway, we had to go to jail to pick her up, and then we all returned to court for a hearing. She and her friends were given community service, and that was the end of it. There was no fine, nothing more. Would that happen today? I don't know the answer. I can say that these teens were all very humbled by the entire ordeal, but that's not the point. Now I think that if those teens were not white, the whole affair would have had a different outcome. Some are treated more harshly than others. There's an unequal aspect to justice. The school-to-prison pipeline is alive and well in ours and other communities. I have a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. "We have deluded ourselves into believing the myth that capitalism grew and prospered out of the Protestant ethic of hard work and sacrifice. The fact is that capitalism was built on the exploitation and suffering of black slaves and continues to thrive on the exploitation of the poor, both black and white, here and abroad." The housing problem in the United States is in crisis. It's a downward spiral for our nation. There are so many factors to this problem that begins with low-paying wages that cannot meet the cost of an apartment, let alone purchasing a home. Landlords take advantage of an opportunity to charge the going rate. What really caught my breath was when leadership of Escambia County were asked to discuss the issue of housing with Just Pensacola. They refused or were not available. Where do they think they're going to get workers? Affordable housing is as important as our beautiful beaches. The floor of wages is just too low. Businesses take advantage of this. There is just no path to get ahead. What is a fair wage for an unskilled worker? I don't know this answer, but taking advantage of the unskilled to keep them in poverty is not the path to a vibrant society. Membership in labor unions is increasing, but this is a slow process. This may help to level the playing field for some and wake up the business community to a new reality. Our nation has such a long history of separating people. I won't go into the history of Reconstruction and the aftermath, but will speak to deliberate actions of our nation to prevent people to succeed. We all take advantage of our highway system. What happened to many established neighborhoods of black and brown communities? Those who had control of location of the highways ended up dividing neighborhoods. Vibrant areas in cities were just cut away from their community. I saw this in Chicago, but we can find this throughout the nation. This then allowed the cities to allocate resources by neighborhood. The distribution was neither fair or equal. People are still suffering from this. What about home ownership? Banks and federal government created redlining. There was deliberate plan to not loan in certain areas because it was assumed that people would not pay. This was just assumed not by any actual knowledge, but pure prejudice. If people were able to obtain a loan, the interest rate and conditions were different than for white buyers. The same occurred with farmers. Black farmers were not able to access the loans that white farmers could. There's really no clear explanation of why except for prejudice. As a side note, my experience in Chicago, I grew up on the far south side of the city. It was a middle class area. After MLK's death, white flight occurred in the area. There's a special place in hell, and I know we don't believe in it, but there is, for realtors with their tactics. Realtors would call in the evenings and give updates of where people were moving. So there would be a late night call with a voice, never identified, but there would be a voice of, they're moving to 107th Street, or whatever landmark affected the white homeowner. It was pure scare tactics, and it just devastated the area. The realtors came out ahead by selling at inflated prices to eager buyers wanting to get out of public housing. Afterwards, the area became one of the highest percentage of HUD foreclosures. It's just awful. This is not fair or equal when the cards are against you from the get-go. My ideal world would be where people stayed and integration occurred. Nope, just one or the other. The end results include food deserts where there's no local grocery and empty landscape. When people are given no opportunity, it gives them no hope. Our banking system is another area where equity is missing. To open an account, you have to have money. If you need a small loan, say $500 or less, the banks don't want to deal with you. So people end up using payday loans. I believe that they're not legal in Florida, but they sure are over the border in Alabama. Just go over that bridge, right there. Title loans. It's a scam created to keep you in debt. Once you borrow, the interest accrues and just keeps growing. Poor people don't have resources. Politicians allow this rather than trying to look at the problem it creates. I suppose campaign contributions and lobbying keep the businesses open. What about voting? I believe there are some states that have rules on redistricting where the politicians are not involved. That doesn't appear to be the case in Florida or Alabama and many other states. The lines drawn are deliberately intended to marginalize population and keep the vote with the party in office. The carving out of areas are so obvious of the intention so that there's little competition. The marginalized get no say and don't have representation. It's intended to be disenfranchisement. After the last election, several states proposed and passed voting restrictions to protect the vote. Total nonsense. And we know that because of the disproportionate number of legislators who have the power, it has happened. Our court system has not protected the vote. Of course, these laws are touted as equal, but we know that they are not. The intention is to make voting more difficult by requiring more identification, limiting times to vote. It's interesting that there are proposals to limit voting on Sunday. Why would that be? Could it be because black churches organize transportation to take people to the polls? The fear of people of color becoming the majority is so obvious. Property taxes in an area is an area that is made to continue inequity. In our education system, most states have a multiplier used to calculate taxes based upon the value of the home or property. So the more wealthy areas have more money to spend on education, where the poorer areas do not. I believe that the states themselves allocate money as well, but still the equity is not there. Poorer students receive less resources and consequently poorer in education. Nothing trickles down to raise that bar. Speaking of taxes, what about the richest people pay the least percentage of tax? The laws and regulations are created to protect them and shield their money. I don't begrudge those who have more money than I, but I do begrudge that the wealthy can write off their yacht but I cannot write off my John vote. Climate change affects all of us, but not equally. The poor suffer more now and will continue to suffer. Corporations have used their power to deny that their products are the cause of climate change. It's becoming more obvious that their tactics are meant to confuse the issue rather than address ways to reduce the harm. In both Alabama and Florida, the legislatures refused to sign on to the Affordable Care Act. By accepting the health care money, the citizens would have had affordable health care and the states would have received money to help. Instead, out of spite, they have reduced available health care in rural areas with closing of hospitals. This in turn has caused the people mostly poor to lose care or have to travel distances for care. The failure of not providing equal opportunity has harmed so many. And now to the war on women. So much to touch on, including lack of opportunity in business world, inequality and compensation for equal world, and control of health care. The latest leaked decision regarding Roe v. Wade is just too much to even digest. A recent opinion page written by Kyle Whitmire of AL.com does sum it up. In Alabama and throughout the nation, legislators are creating laws that harm rather than help citizens. Up until now, we on the progressive spectrum could count on the courts to protect from bottoming out. Now we may not even have that net. And this is a quote from the article. There is no guarantee anymore that the federal judiciary will protect women or anyone. In 2013, the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act, and we haven't gotten a new one yet. Now the right to privacy appears to be lost. This leaked decision does not only affect women. The battle for gay rights has been hard fought. It has taken many years to win the right to live without fear of legal repercussions. What changes will take place, and how do we protect the vulnerable? Our liberal religion of Unitarian Universalism has been at the forefront of protecting those who do not have the power to protect themselves. We are people who raise awareness to the issues. We don't just talk about it, we act. This is a call to action for voting rights and motivate our representatives to get going. This is not the time to allow ourselves to give up. We are not people who give up. Even when all appears to be lost, we are there to lift up our voice and speak. Silence is not our method. We are aware of wrongs and speak up. Nothing is impossible. Working toward obtaining equality is not easy, but we will continue to push toward that goal. We can pick that scab until someone pays attention and tries to stop the pain. It is our duty to continue to work to make it so that all people have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. May it be so. Now please stand as the choir comes forward, and we will be, our closing hymn is number 121, We'll Build a Land.
We got a chair for you.
Thank you for waiting.
We have some closing words that will be followed by a video that you are welcome to watch. It is called The Power to the People. And it's up to you how you want to close this service, but we will close the service with these words and then the video. I Want to Be with People by Dana Worsnop. Often people say that love coming to a place, they love to come to a place with so many like-minded people. I know just what they're getting at. And I know that they aren't getting it quite right. I don't want to be with a bunch of people who think just like me. I want to be in a beloved community where I don't have to think like everyone else to be loved or to be eligible for salvation. I don't want to be with people who value compassion, justice, love, and truth, though they have different thoughts and opinions about all sorts of things. I want to be with them. I want to be with independent-minded people of good heart. I want to be with people who have many names and perhaps no names for God. I want to be with people who see me in goodness and dignity, but who also see my failings and foibles, and who still love me. I want to be with people who feel their interconnectedness with all existence and let it guide their footfalls upon the earth. I want to be with people who see life as a paradox, and they don't always rush to solve it. I want to be with people who are willing to walk the tightrope that is life, and who will hold my hand as I walk mine. I want to be with people who let church call them into a different way of being in the world. I want to be with people who support, encourage, and even challenge each other to higher and more ethical living. I want to be with people who inspire one another to follow the call of the Spirit. I want to be with people who covenant to be honest, engaged, and kind, who strive to keep their promises and hold me to the promises that I make. I want to be with people who give of themselves, who share their hearts and their minds and their gifts. I want to be with people who know that human community is often warm and generous, sometimes challenging, and almost always a grand adventure. In short, I want to be with people like you and me.